And now it's time for the Insiders with Chuck Chvala and Scott Jensen, sponsored by the Wisconsin Counties Association.
Hi, I'm Chuck Chvala, former Senate Majority Leader.
And I'm Scott Jensen, former Assembly Speaker.
And we're the Insiders. So, Scott, sounds like the Milwaukee Brewers want a big chunk of money, hundreds of millions of dollars, and even Packers want to get in the act with a couple million. What's your take on the Brewers and whether we should do this? Is it the right thing to do? What's going on here? Give me your thoughts. Are we in blackmail? What is it?
Well, I don't know. Are you having the same sort of flashbacks I'm having as we watch this debate? I think this whole thing with the Brewers got off on the wrong foot when they went and cut a deal with the governor, and apparently not with the legislative leaders. The governor announced the deal. The legislative leaders got their nose out of joint because they weren't involved in it. And now progress has been pretty slow throughout that. There's also not as much pressure as I think the MLB commissioner would have liked on the city of Milwaukee at the moment. I mean, Oakland frittered around for a decade before they lost their team. I know there are people circling around from Nashville and Austin and maybe Salt Lake City to see if Milwaukee falters and gives up a team. But I just don't think that the threat seems is real yet. The foundation for a deal really hasn't been laid out there yet. There's some basic questions that are still coming up. MLB says we need a lot more money than the state ballpark district said we need to fix that ballpark up. I think there's a question there. So I think in the end, this won't happen in the budget. It won't happen for a while. And I think it will end up looking not unlike the deal that you and I were involved in when the original Miller ballpark, now American Family Field, was built, in that we took some existing revenues that the state was getting because of that enterprise and devoted it towards the costs of the stadium. There were some private contributions that were made here and there. There was some local government contributions, or at least we counted them as contributions towards it. And we made the deal a little bit smaller, I think, than people might have originally thought it would be. And we called it a day. And I think that will eventually happen here, that they will get there. I don't think the city wants to lose, or Southeastern Wisconsin wants to lose the team. It is getting very, very expensive to keep these teams. Even, the first deal was a lot of money for 20 years. This one is a lot of money for an even shorter period of time. But I guess that's the price of playing in the big leagues.
Well, some may forget, but the reality of the first Brewer deal was that enough Democrats withheld their vote that George Petek, unfortunately, the leadership in the state Senate on the Republican side made George Petek walk the plank and vote for this package, even though he had promised his constituents in Racine he would not do so because they were going to be charged. That resulted in the only successful recall in the history of the state of Wisconsin of a state legislator. George Petek was recalled, Kim Plotke came in, and the Democrats got the majority. So we would often say that it worked out well. We got the Brewers to stay in Milwaukee, and the Democrats got a majority. That worked out pretty well. But the reality is that these national teams, they're owned by billionaires. They make billions of dollars. And we really shouldn't be subsidizing them across the country. And there ought to be some national legislation to make sure that this doesn't happen. Okay, that's not happening, all right? Because they're very powerful people and they won't let that happen at the national level. But by the way, flew to the average electorate person, that ought to be one of the first questions you ask somebody running for office. Will you stop these crazy subsidies to the NFL, the NHL, the MLB, and the NBA? Will you stop these? Because if you don't, then we're in a position where do we want to have a Major League Baseball team or not? And I think the answer to that for Milwaukee is yes, we do. And for the state of Wisconsin is yes, we do. And this is just the price of doing business, because it's kind of dancing with the 800-pound gorilla. Unless the 800-pound gorilla of Major League Baseball sits down, you have to dance. And the reality is they will get what they want. Now, Robin Voss can hold out and make them uncomfortable because they dealt with the governor first and not him. But at the end of the day, Robin Voss is not going to be the one want to be the one responsible, and all of his people in his caucus for having the Milwaukee Brewers move out. So that's going to be done. You know, there's another example that's even more egregious, and this one absolutely doesn't have to be done. And that is $2 million. Packers want $2 million to subsidize having the NFL draft in Green Bay. No way. No way at all. They've already agreed to this. They've got it financed. They're not threatening to leave, nor can they. And by the way, why would we give them an additional $2 million when they're already getting billions of dollars in TV revenue from the what's happening with the NFL and their national football programs? That is absolutely not needed. So we've got two things out there. One, a smaller amount of money, but you know, $2 million is still a lot of money for a family budget. We don't need to do that. They've got this thing. It's coming to Green Bay. You don't need to subsidize it. I'd much rather see those subsidies go to Brown County or to Green Bay to do something else for their citizens than worrying about whether the draft is coming. It's coming, folks.
Well, I tell you, I think the Packer draft situation is really quite different. It's a one-time event. It is essentially a tourism event. The money is not going to the Green Bay Packers. It's going to a local organization that promotes tourism and economic development in the Green Bay area. And that's what the goal of it is they're going to have tens of thousands. In fact, if it's like other states, hundreds of thousands of people come to northeastern Wisconsin. This is our moment to sell those folks on this state so they continue to come back here in years to come. So I really view that as a modest tourism investment. We've done those sort of things in the past for other major events that have been held. I'll bet we end up putting more money into the national convention than we did to the draft. So I think that one is much easier. I'm going to go back to the Brewers, though, on one thing. It's interesting how history repeats itself often in politics. And for those who are critical of Speaker Voss, they should remember that he had a front row seat to the demise of Senator Petak. At your hands, by the way, Chuck. So Senator Petak is the only person ever recalled. That is seared into the memory of all of the Republican Party officials in Racine County from that time frame. And I think that will continue to color his decision making as they try to reach an agreement with the Brewers on an updated ballpark.
But the reality is that George Petak, who is a very good man, by the way,
Yes.
and I've seen him many times since then, really good guy, but he paid the price for what was really a decision by leadership to hang him out to dry. There were many people, and I will not name names, on the Republican side who could have voted for this package, who did not face the same problem that we had here with George Petak. And the difference for Robin Voss is it isn't even close. He's got 60 some members. There isn't anybody from Racine, whether it's him or anybody else, that has to vote for this. That is not what's at stake here. This is a matter of whether leadership can get it done. And sometimes leaders are good, sometimes they get arrogant. But at the end of the day, this is a leadership decision. And although I think Robin will ultimately make sure that the Brewers are taken care of, he's playing with fire here. If at any point there starts to be serious talk about the Brewers going to another state and it happens, Republicans will pay the price for quite a while.
I believe the names you didn't say were Senator Ellis and Senator Welch. I remember it well. It's 5 a.m. I was there.
We'll see you next time.
You've been listening to The Insiders with Chuck Chvala and Scott Jensen, sponsored by the Wisconsin Counties Association